Hello. Okay, I think I'm like super late to the game on this one, but I wanted to play along anyway. I did plan to try and get this video done by like before the end of January, because then it still felt like, you know, the beginning of the year, but it's just the start of February, so I'm gonna say this still counts and it's still fine. I mean, I make the rules here anyway. So I thought that I would do a video about the 20 books I would like to read in 2024. I definitely stole that nice round number from Sophie and Renee. Last year I did do 23 for 23, and I read a grand total of 11 of those books. I'm not so good at sticking to lists at all. I much prefer to do what I want in the moment, but I still thought it would be fun to come up for a list for myself, you know, to see what I want to read and kind of what I'm feeling at the start of the year and see how that goes. Some of these books I have carried over from last year, but not all of them, but I thought that we could just run through them. I'll probably just read you the synopsis so we all get a flavour for my potential reading this year, and this is in like no particular order at all, but yeah, let's go. I did make this list at the very beginning of the year, and I have managed to read 2 books off of it so far, so for me that's off to like a grand start. We're loving that. But the first book on my list here is The Stillest Day by Josephine Hart, and this is purely only on this list, or even like in like I only know of this book because of sweet dear Ben, and my sincerest apologies that I have not picked this up sooner, because I know that he knows a good book. I know that this is going to be an absolute gem. I just for some reason haven't picked it up, and that is, you know, probably to my own detriment. Like I know that this is going to be really good. Bethesda Barnett is an artist and a teacher. Her village life with an invalid mother is almost ritualistically ordered and calm, one foot before the other, quietly tapping out the years, until one day the sudden vision of a man's face sears itself onto her mind's eye, an imprint of essential hypnotic power. She begins to paint fragmented images of Matthew Pearson secretly and obsessively. Matthew Pearson has a wife, a small, laughing, pregnant creature whom Bethesda's, why is that name so hard for me to say? Bethesda's mother befriends. Yeah, that sounds right up my street. Ben, I don't know why I haven't read this yet. I know that you love this book, and therefore I will love this book. So I put it at the top of my list because I need it to happen this year. Next up is Sister Outsider by Audre Lorde, because we know I love a good essay collection, and I've only heard good things about this. I have started it. I've read a few of the essays, and so far I am absolutely loving it. It is so good. Her voice is so like compelling but also easy to read, and it feels like this is going to become like a favorite essay collection, to be honest. It's just so thoughtful and intelligent and caring, and like just so good. The revolutionary writings of Audre Lorde gave voice to those outside the circle of the society's definition of acceptable women. Uncompromising, angry, and yet full of hope, this collection of her essential prose, essays, speeches, letters, interviews explores race, sexuality, poetry, friendship, the erotic, and the need for female solidarity, and includes her landmark piece, The Master's Tools Will Never Dismantle the Master's House. And yes, that's something I love about this, is that it's not just one form of writing. You see how her voice manages to work across different forms like seamlessly so well, and yeah, I'm absolutely loving this so far. Next up is a release from last year that I was really excited to get my hands on, but I kind of wanted to wait until my head was in a better space to read it because I know that I'm going to love it. It's Lovebug by Daisy Lafarge. If you know me, you know my love for her novel Paul, which is brilliant, and I would highly recommend that if you haven't read it. But this is some non-fiction. In Lovebug, Daisy Lafarge explores metaphors of love and disease as she seeks to understand human vulnerability in our intimacy with microbial life, turning to microbiology, mysticism, and psychoanalysis, as well as the raw materials of love and life. Lafarge navigates the uncomfortable intimacy between the human body and the many bacteria, viruses, and parasites to which it is host. I think that sounds so good. Like, I cannot wait to be completely immersed in all of this grossness and loveliness, and I think I'm going to devour it. Then on my list I have a book that is actually helping me prop up my phone to film this, so I'm sorry, I will put it here. On Freedom by Maggie Nelson. Okay, so I will read the blurb from here because I don't have my copy to hand. We're actually, I've already read this book and it was really good. We're reading it for my book club, which is tonight, so I'm excited to discuss it with other people and see what their thoughts are. Where is it? Drawing on a vast range of material, from critical theory to pop culture to the intimacies and plain exchanges of daily life, Nelson explores how we might think, experience, or talk about freedom in ways responsive to the conditions of our day. Her abiding interest lies in the ongoing practices of freedom by which we negotiate our interrelation with, indeed our inseparability from, others, with all the care, constraint that relation entails, while accepting difference and conflict as integral to our communion. Yeah, it's really good. It's called, the full title of the book is On Freedom, 4 Songs of Care and Constraint, and Nelson dives into 4 areas throughout the book. You have art, sex, drugs, and climate. I have to say that the art chapter was probably my favorite, the drugs chapter maybe my least favorite, and then I'm not sure which one I preferred between sex and climate. They were both really good as well, and you should see my copy. Basically every single page is dog-eared. There's so much underlining. I think if you want to sink your teeth into something that will like provoke more discussion, this is a really good essay collection. Okay, next up is a book that I cannot believe that I have not read yet, The Lonely City by Olivia Laing. When Olivia Laing moved to New York City in her mid-30s, she found herself inhabiting loneliness on a daily basis. Increasingly fascinated by this most shameful of experiences, she began to explore the lonely city by way of art. Moving fluidly between the works and lives of some of the city's most compelling artists, Laing conducts an electric, dazzling investigation into what it means to be alone, illuminating not only the cause of loneliness, but also how it might be redeemed and embraced. I think I will absolutely love this. I love all of their writing, to be honest. I think that Olivia Laing is probably one of my favourite writers, and so I will be very surprised if I don't love this. I'm pretty sure the first essay is about David von Eurovich, which only makes me want to read it more. So yeah, looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to all of these. Next up is a book by an artist that I only know of through Olivia Laing's work, Derek Jarman's Modern Nature, which, look at that cover, so gorgeous. In 1986, Derek Jarman discovered that he was HIV positive and decided to make a garden at his cottage on the barren coast of Dungeness. Facing an uncertain future, he nevertheless found solace in nature, growing all manner of plants. While some perished beneath wind and sea spray, others flourished, creating brilliant, unexpected beauty in the wilderness. Modern Nature is both a diary of the garden and a meditation on Jarman's own life, his childhood, his time as a young gay man in the 1960s, his renowned career as an artist, writer, and filmmaker. It is at once a lament for a lost generation, an unabashed celebration of gay sexuality, and a devotion to all that is living. That sounds stunning. Okay, then we have a book that I've wanted to read for a while, because, well, mostly the title is what like drew me to it. I think it's so dramatic and so gorgeous. A Ghost in the Throat by ghríofa. It is a stunning cover, a stunning name, and it just sounds like I'm gonna love it, even though like I don't really know much about it. I was so drawn in by the title. I love a good title almost as much, if not more than, a good cover. Titles are important, and as someone who's had to title pieces of like work and art in the past, like that's one of my favorite processes of the creation is, what am I going to name this piece? Like, a title has to do something, and this certainly did something to me. It made me want to pick it up anyway. In this strikingly inventive prose debut, ghríofa sculpts essay and autofiction to explore the deep connection between two writers centuries apart. In the 1700s, an Irish noblewoman, on discovering that her husband has been murdered, drinks handfuls of his blood and composes an extraordinary poem. Dark. In the present day, a young mother narrowly avoids tragedy. On encountering the poem, she becomes obsessed with its echoes in her own life and sets out to track down the rest of the poet's story. Sign me up. That sounds so good. Okay, what do we have next? Okay, next is a book that I almost read last year. So over the summer, I wanted to read a classic that was kind of chunky, that I could really get lost in. And it was a choice between East of Eden by John Steinbeck and Master and Margarita by Mikhail Bulgakov. I know a lot of people whose taste I admire, and like friends of mine really enjoy this book. My flatmate has been trying to get me to read this for a long time. One hot spring, the devil makes a personal appearance in Moscow, accompanied by various demons, including a naked girl and a huge black cat. When he leaves, the asylums are full and the forces of law and order in disarray. Only the master, a man devoted to truth, and Margarita, the woman he loves, can resist the devil's onslaught. Sounds chaotic, and I'm up for that. Then we have another Toni Morrison, because I read two last year and absolutely found love. Beloved is the Toni Morrison that I really want to get to this year. It is the mid-1800s, and as slavery looks to be coming to an end, Seth is haunted by the violent trauma wrought on her former enslaved life at Sweet Home, Kentucky. Her dead baby daughter, whose tombstone bears a single word, beloved, returns as a spectre to punish her mother, but also to elicit her love. Told with heart-stopping clarity, melding horror and beauty, Beloved is Toni Morrison's enduring masterpiece. That sounds beautiful and haunting, and I'm really, really especially looking forward to reading this year. Okay, next I have The Door by Magda Szabó, which has one of my favorite covers that I've ever seen. It's also just like a really good size for a book. Like, it's slightly smaller, and it's just, even like the cover, the paper feels nice. I know that quite a few people have already read this and loved it, and I'm pretty sure I will as well. Emerence is a domestic servant, strong, fierce, eccentric, and with a reputation for being a first-rate housekeeper. When Magda, a young Hungarian writer, employs her, she never imagines how important this woman will become to her. It takes 20 years for a complex trust between them to be slowly, carefully built. But Emerence has secrets and vulnerabilities beneath her indomitable exterior that will test Magda's friendship and change the complexion of both their lives irreversibly. So we have two women, and they form some sort of relationship, and then we look at how they affect one another. That sounds like my kind of book. Okay, we're getting through this. I think we're maybe like about halfway. Next up, some more non-fiction. We have Women, Race and Class by Angela Y. Davis. Again, another stunning cover. Ranging from the age of slavery to contemporary injustices, the seminal history of race, gender, and class inequality offers an alternative view of female struggles for liberation, tracing the intertwined histories of the abolitionist and women's suffrage movements. Davis examines the racism and class prejudice inherent in so much of white feminism, and in doing so brings to light new pioneering heroines, from field slave to mill workers who fought back and refused to accept the lives into which they were born. Sounds powerful, sounds important, sounds like I must absolutely read that this year. Okay, another book that I don't have on me right now. So this is a book that is on my radar, completely down to Sophie. It is The Hearing Trumpet by Leonora Carrington. I had never heard of her until Sophie mentioned her, and then I looked her up, and she sounds absolutely magnificent, fascinating, and completely my kind of woman. Let's see. One of the first things 92-year-old Marion Leatherby overhears when she is given an ornate hearing trumpet is her family plotting to commit her to an institution. Soon she finds herself trapped in a sinister retirement home where the elderly must inhabit buildings shaped like igloos and birthday cakes, endure twisted religious preaching, and eat in a canteen overlooked by the mysterious portraits of a leering abbess. But when another resident secretly hands Marion a book recounting the life of the abbess, a joyous and brilliantly surreal adventure begins to unfold. Written in the early 1960s, The Hearing Trumpet remains one of the most original and inspirational of all fantastic novels. Yeah, it sounds quite fantastic, it sounds surreal, it sounds like a bit of a ride, and yeah, I want to get into her writing, and I feel like this is a good place to start. Okay, next up, again, I don't have this book on me, but this is going to be my book club's book for February. The Women Destroyed by Simone de Beauvoir. First published in 1967, this book consists of 3 short novellas on the theme of women's vulnerability. In the first, to the process of aging, in the second, to loneliness, and in the third, to the growing indifference of a loved one. The Women Destroyed is a collection of 3 stories, each an exquisite and passionate study of a woman trapped by circumstances trying to rebuild her life. Yeah, sounds great. I've actually not read any Simone de Beauvoir, so I'm very excited to finally be diving into her writing, and especially excited to be doing it alongside my book club. Okay, the next one is a book that, again, quite a few of my friends read last year or the year before. It's a book that is supposed to be like quite quiet and not much happens, and it's kind of almost a character study, like a novel-length character study, and I have the most appalling cover, so I'm really sorry. I'm really sorry, but it's Stoner by John Williams. William Stoner enters the University of Missouri at 19 to study agriculture. Later, he becomes a teacher. He marries the wrong woman. His life is quiet, and after his death, his colleagues remember him rarely. Yet, with truthfulness, compassion, and intense power, this novel uncovers a story of universal value. Stoner tells of the conflicts, defeats, and victories of the human race that pass unrecorded by history, and reclaims the significance of an individual life. A reading experience like no other, itself a paean to the power of literature, it is a novel to be savoured. And I've only heard good things about this. Pretty much everyone that I have heard speak about this, unexpectedly loves it, way more than they thought they were going to. So I'm really looking forward. I'm saying after every single book, I'm really looking forward to reading this, as if I didn't put this list together of books that I wanted to read this year. So it's no surprise that, yes, I am looking forward to it. Okay, then we have a book that I have already read, that I have ticked off my list, but I do not have on me because I read this on my e-reader, that's why. Let's see. It is Indelicacy by Amina Cain, and the reason I put this on my list and the reason that I read it was because I read A Horse at Night on Writing and thought it was incredible. That's a work of non-fiction by Amina Cain that is kind of detailing her love of writing and her love of books and of words and the literary works that have inspired her. And so I was really interesting to see what all that inspiration led to and read one of her fiction books. So I picked this up and I ate it really quickly because it's so good. An elegant, haunting debut from an exciting new voice that reads like a modern classic. I would agree with that. In an undefined era and place, a cleaning woman at a museum of art aspires to do more than simply dust the paintings around her. She dreams of having the liberty to explore them in writing, and so must find the way to win herself the security and time to use her mind. She escapes her lot by marrying a rich man, but having gained a husband, a house, high society, and a maid, she finds that her new life of privilege is no less constrained. Not only has she taken up different forms of time-consuming labour, social and erotic, but she is now, however passively, forcing other women to clean up after her. Perhaps another and more drastic solution is necessary. I really loved this because, like the blurb there says, like, it is an undefined time, and I feel like Cain really committed to that. Like, this could be any time. Like, this could have happened anywhere, anytime, and is really good. The kind of like crossing the class boundaries, really interesting. Yeah, very, very slim. So a very quick read, but a really satisfying read as well. Okay, we're getting there. We're getting there. Next up, we have Go Tell It on the Mountain by James Baldwin. I read Giovanni's Room, I think not last year, but the year before, and absolutely loved it. And I just really love James Baldwin. I think that he was an incredible mind, and I'm really there to listen to anything he has to say, whether that's through interviews, whether it's through his fiction, his non-fiction. So he had to be on my list this year. Drawing on his boyhood in a religious community in 1930s Harlem, he tells the story of young Johnny Grimes. Johnny is destined to become a preacher like his father, Gabriel, at the Temple of the Fire, baptized, where the church swells with song, and it is as if the Holy Ghost were riding on the air. But he feels only scalding hatred for Gabriel, whose fear and fanaticism make him cruelly abuse his family. Johnny vows that for him, things will be different. This blazing tale is full of passion and guilt, of secret sinners and prayers singing on the wind. Yes, I love books that have religious themes, and Baldwin's writing is just so stunning, so beautiful. So yes, yet again, I'm looking forward to it. We're down to the last four. Another one that I do not have on me. Okay, this one's on my list because 1, I really wanted to read more Jeanette Winterson, and 2, my friend Mika read this and enjoyed it, so I was like, you have good taste, I'm probably going to love that too. And also, one of the things I want to do this year is read more art criticism. So it's Jeanette Winterson's Art Objects, Essays on Ecstasy and Effrontery. These interlocking essays uncover art as an active force in the world, neither elitist or remote, present to those who want it, affecting even those who don't. Winterson's own passionate vision of art is presented here, provocatively and personally, in pieces on modernism, autobiography, style, painting, the future of fiction, in 2 essays on Virginia Woolf, and more intimately in pieces where she describes her relationship to her work and the books that she loves. Brilliant. Artist writing about art. Give it to me. Okay, down to the final 3. This is a book that I don't really know how I came across. I think I was just like on the internet, like, and you know when you're like looking at books and it kind of leads you to another book, and then it leads you to another one, and then it leads you to another one, and then you're like just like going through all these threads and tangents, and then you stumble upon something and you're like, I think this was meant for me. That's how I feel about this book. Dialogue with a Somnambulist, Essay Stories, and a Portrait Gallery by Chloe Aregis. It sounds bizarre, and I'm so down for that. Renowned internationally for her lyrically unsettling novels Book of Clouds, Asunder, and Sea Monsters, the Mexican writer Chloe Aregis crosses borders in her work as much as she traverses them in life. Now, collected here for the first time, her stories, essays, and pen portraits reveal an author as imaginatively at home in the short form as in her longer form. I actually had never heard of this writer or any of their work, but it just sounds so good. At once fabular and formally innovative, acquainted with a reverie and rigorous report, sensitive to the needs of a wider ecology, yet familiar with the landscapes of the unconscious, her texts are both dream dispatches and wayward wordplays infused with the pleasure and possibilities of language. Conversations with the presences who dwell on the threshold of waking and reverie, flunuses of the dusk and the dawn, these pieces will stay with you long after the lamps have flickered out. Like, even that synopsis is like pure poetry for me. Like, it sounds so good. Again, I love the cover. It's so simple. It's like a really good size of a book, and I have no idea how I stumbled across this, but I'm so glad I did. Okay, down to the last two. We have a book that it seems like everybody read in the last couple of years but me. This was on my list last year, but I didn't make it around to it, and that is The Wall by Marlon Halsoffer. Let's see. A woman takes a holiday in the Austrian mountains, spending a few days with her cousin and his wife in their hunting lodge. When the couple fails to return from a walk, the woman sets off to look for them, but her journey reaches a sinister and inexplicable dead end. She discovers only a transparent wall behind which there seems to be no life. Trapped alone behind the mysterious wall, she begins the arduous work of survival. This is at once a simple account of potatoes and beans, of hoping for a calf, of counting matches, of forgetting the taste of sugar and the use of one's name, and simultaneously a disturbing dissection of the place of human beings in the natural world. That sounds great. That sounds like women in the wilderness trying to figure out what it all means, and yes. And last, but definitely not least, my girl Joan Didion. I went for Run River. I have a few books of hers that I haven't read, but I've read mostly non-fiction by Joan Didion, so I thought for this year's list I'm going to put a fiction on there. Joan Didion's electrifying first novel is a haunting portrait of a marriage whose wrong turns and betrayals are at once absolutely idiosyncratic and a razor-sharp commentary on the history of California. Everett McClellan and his wife Lily are the great-grandchildren of pioneers, and what happens to them is a tragic epilogue to the pioneer experience, a story of murder and betrayal that only Didion could tell with such nuance, sympathy, and suspense. I really love her writing, if you didn't know that already. So it's her first novel as well, so I think it would be interesting to see her debut novel and compare it to Play It As It Lays, which I thought was like so well written and so depressing, but like done so well. And I think that would be interesting to compare the two. I love a book about a marriage as well. Very into reading about marriages and how they fare. And that's my list of books that I would like to read this year. Will I read them all? We can probably all bet that I will absolutely not. Will I read some of them? I really hope so, because it's a really good list. But of course I'm going to say that because I wrote the list. If you have read any of these, please let me know what you thought. I'm already excited for like all of them, but I'd love to know what you think. Tell me the book that you're most looking forward to reading this year, because I think I'd have a hard choice choosing between any of these. None of them are new releases. I think the newest one is probably Lovebug by Daisy Lafarge. I think most of the things I read are backlisted. I get a bit stressed out trying to keep up with the current publishing cycle, and it's like I'm always being like told what to read, and my brain really hates that. So this is these are mostly older titles, so yeah, maybe you've read them, but I don't think I could choose which one I'm like most excited about. Well, I think they all sound good. But yeah, thank you for watching, and I will see you soon.